sometimes you know what you don't know, and sometimes, as the Firesign Theater says, everything you know is wrong.
You know that you're wrong, but you fear you're right.
You suspect you're out of sync. You think that you're out of your mind.
Everything you know is wrong.
Americans consume over 100 million pounds of oysters every year. But thanks to global warming and a very nasty pathogen, these pearl-hatching mollusks may soon be a thing of the past. So if you think that oysters will always be America's favorite aphrodisiac, then everything you know is wrong. Joining me now from our New York studio is Peter Andre Smith, a contributing writer to Modern Farmer magazine. Peter, welcome.
Hi, Tom.
Great to have you with us. So, in your article in Modern Farmer titled Seasick, Why Warmer Waters and a Sneaky Pathogen May Put You Off Oysters Forever, you talked about what happened to a Nevada doctor in 2004. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so this guy, he went to Alaska and he went on a 3 or 4 day cruise on this small little cruise ship. He probably ate some salmon, he ate some raw oysters. He flies home and he realizes that he's got stomach cramps, he's got diarrhea. He's like, what is this? So he's a doctor, he runs some tests for normal foodborne pathogens, E. coli, salmonella. They both come back negative. So he runs another test for this pathogen called Vibrio. And sure enough, that's what he has.
Vibrio is cholera, is it not?
That is true. So Vibrio cholera is cholera, and Vibrio, I mean, it's a huge species, and you basically can find it anywhere in the ocean. And so this was Vibrio parahemolyticus, or VP.
And what is Vibrio parahemolyticus, and where is it found, and how is it spread?
Well, I mean, how it's spread is something of a matter of debate, but it can basically be spread on ocean currents. It can also be spread on ship ballast. There's some incidents in Chile, and they think it came there on ships, so they discharge water and it spreads. But basically, Vibrio parahemolyticus lives in warm, brackish water, basically the same place you'll find an oyster.
Huh. And are they accumulating in oysters? Because oysters are bivalves. They're basically, they feed by filtering enormous quantities of water through themselves and pulling out nutrients, and thus if there's bacteria in that water, they pick it up and hang on to it. Is that the deal?
Exactly. Oysters are filter feeders, so anything that's in the water is going to start accumulating inside the oyster. So if you have, clean, healthy water, then you're going to have clean, healthy oysters.
So is the presence of a pathogen that is typically associated with warm, brackish water in some place like Alaska a symptom of global warming, or is it just a weird fluke that, like you said, some ship might have discharged something out of their bilge?
I mean, that's sort of a matter of scientific debate, but it seems like when they first called in this report to the Alaska health officials, they were really surprised. They had never even heard of Vibrio parahemolyticus in Alaska. It wasn't on their radar at all. So they went back and they did some additional scientific studies, and they said, oh, it looks like there was a warm water current that probably took this bacteria into the Gulf of Alaska in 2004, and it's possible that was driven by climate change or sort of climate anomalies that are sort of more frequent now that we have climate change. But this is sort of a matter of great scientific debate.
Yeah, well, we're seeing a whole variety of diseases, including malaria, moving out of typically tropical regions and into semi-tropical and temperate regions as the planet warms. So this doesn't seem to be a huge surprise. What is the rule of R with regard to oysters?
So the rule of R is this sort of mythical rule that says basically don't eat an oyster in a month that has, or do only eat oysters in months that have the letter R. So October, we can eat an oyster, but June, you probably want to stay away from them. So that largely has to do with oyster reproduction. Basically, oysters spawn in the summer, so they're generally a little bit milkier. But it was also sort of a good rule of thumb to avoid this bacteria. But it's not a fail-safe rule by any stretch of the imagination.
Does the FDA examine oysters when they come into the United States or when they're caught? Is there what percentage of them are checked on?
Well, I think they're. I really don't know what the FDA how often they inspect them, but I know that they did propose in 2009 that all oysters be treated with either pasteurization or irradiation. So basically, any raw oyster had to be cooked, basically, or treated in these other ways. But that failed because oyster growers in the Gulf of Mexico said, they didn't want those regulations.
And ironically enough, probably the biggest poisons coming out of the Gulf of Mexico now are not the bacteria, it's the oil products. Anyhow, Peter Smith, thank you so much. Peter Andre Smith, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Tom.